Okay, so this is another interesting interview for the Freality podcast because today we have a special guest coming to us live from the metaverse. He works on business development, community manager at VRChat. He's the self-proclaimed president of virtual reality. It's VRPill. Welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
No worries. I'm actually coming you literally from the metaverse. I'm hanging out right now virtually in VRChat with some ducks in one of the new worlds called Udon Bird Sanctuary and feeding ducks as we talk. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I can't imagine anything more peaceful right now than sitting in a virtual world just feeding the ducks.
It's my new therapy. Yeah, I don't need to talk to a counselor. I just go feed the ducks.
So today we've invited you on the show because we want to talk about VRChat, obviously, how it's kind of evolving as a social platform, and also the new virtual market for. But before we get into all those sort of topics, we should maybe start at the very beginning because this is kind of interesting as well. And maybe start with how you got into your role at VRChat and involved in the company at the very beginning when it started.
Yeah, definitely. So, first off, the time frames are going to be estimates here. But years ago, I started a website called VRPill.com. So that was back when VR was starting, I wouldn't say to become mainstream, but starting to get big with indie developers, enthusiasts, etc. And I was living in New York at the time. Got a Gear VR headset and put it on, watched, I don't know, some of the Felix and Paul videos, I think, or some of the 360 videos. They had a little demo reel with the Gear VR, and I was just blown away. And from that moment, I knew I needed to do something with VR. So what I did there was I was working at the same time doing an inside sales job, and literally during my breaks at work and during my lunch times, I would be out there in the break room just working on my VRPill website, just taking in everything I could about VR. And I did this whole website. The emphasis was on 360 videos. It got pretty big. I ended up doing a Hunger Games exclusive party, so I was the exclusive reporter at that party in New York. And it was a great party. They actually said at the time that there was going to be one of the Hunger Games cast there. They wouldn't say who it was, so I kept praying for Jennifer Lawrence, and it wasn't Jennifer Lawrence. I don't remember who it was, but yeah. So that was the peak of my website times with the VRPill website. At that point, I was really competing with the other ones, Upload VR, Road to VR, and then I got into VRChat. So I just found this app somewhere online. I don't even know how I found it. I think it was through some sort of a Reddit post or something. And I went in and I was just blown away. I saw the future there of social VR. I just saw the metaverse. I saw Ready Player One in front of my eyes. And I became so obsessed with VRChat. Now, just so you know, right now, there are literally tens of thousands of people in VRChat at any given time, right? But at that time, there were maybe less than 10 in VRChat.
Wow.
So you knew everybody, right? It was just like, hey, John, hey, Bob, what's up,
So who were those people? Were those like actual players or a lot of people who were just working on this app to build it up?
These were all players. Just regular people, just enthusiasts. The only person that was an employee of VRChat at the time, the two people were Graham and Jesse. They were the ones who created VRChat. And so the rest of us were just enthusiasts having fun with it. And so we would meet up. I would be in VRChat literally from the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep most days.
Wow.
We just scour the internet, look on the Unity Asset Store, anything we could try and bring into virtual reality to see how it would feel in VR. We brought in. So that's all we did. We were on Skype, I think, at the time. Skype shared calls and just did that on and off, bring stuff into VRChat. So I could probably go on, by the way, for hours about this whole
No, this is awesome. This is great. Carry on.
Was it on the DK1 or like what headsets were you using back then?
We were using DK1s and DK2s.
Okay.
So some people had the DK2s, if I remember correctly.
And then with like a Hydra, combination, or were you just using a controller, or mouse and keyboard, old school?
It was. I'm trying to remember now. Like, I don't remember using a controller. I think it was some people had Hydras. No, I was originally using just mouse and keyboard, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. If you had a set of Hydras back then, like you were lucky because they were quite hard to get hold of as well.
Yeah.
There were a few people that had those, if I remember correctly. Also, people messing around with leap motion and things like that. Yeah.
So
how did you like transition from being like a super fan of the platform to then working for the company?
Yeah, definitely. So we started growing a bit. So we moved up from like 10 users online at one point to 20 or 30, which was a big jump at the time. And there started to be just more content, right? That people would be creating and bring into the app. I think actually even before this, so we had these little meetups every week. I think they were on a Sunday. And I just started running these meetups where we would all come together in VRChat and we would explore each other's worlds and go in, give each other feedback on our worlds, and just hang out and have fun. And that was something we did every Sunday. So we would just go to the new worlds. It would be like a world explore, world hop sort of thing. And that's how I got started. I got started doing that, organizing that. That got bigger. That got so big where it eventually became just a nightmare personally to do that. I love doing them, but there were just so many people that wanted to come world explore with us. We had like 3 different mini groups shoot off after we did the introductions, and we were trying to keep track of them, all end up at the same place at the end. And it got to be a lot. So at one point, we stopped doing those. We just got, of course, as you know, Knuckles explosion way too big. But before all that, though, we started getting bigger than that, and even before Knuckles, and I was, I guess, the best way to describe it. So I was like I did pretty much everything for VRChat. So other than the programming side of things, right? So anything public facing. I did the marketing. Any posts you'd see on Reddit. I usually just went on Reddit. I was always afraid they were gonna somehow ban me off of the Oculus and Vive Reddit because I kept going on there just exclaiming, "Look how much cool stuff is happening in VRChat!" and why is everyone still talking about alt space? But which I like alt space. I went in there quite a few times as well. But so I did pretty much everything. That was including moderation. So I was like your Mickey Mouse mascot for VRChat, but at the same time, the big bad police guy who would just literally in-app come down on people who were doing horrible things, right? So this was this was something that you would never see before in any sort of a social app online. Just live moderators in VR in your face banning you in the app. But everything was new, right?
Yeah, and at this point, are you still like a fan, or are you actually working for the company at this point?
So at this point, I believe I was doing part-time, so it was some sort of contract gig, yeah.
Right. And now I take it, like, since then, it's a full-time job for you?
Definitely, full-time now, yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is this like, are you working virtually for them, or is it like physically?
Oh, virtually. Everybody at the company works virtually. There is not a single person who meets in person for anything. We've been doing this forever, and we meet up locally. We're spread across different states, but if there's enough of us, we meet up every so often to just hang out with each other. But the entire company is run without physical meetings. Yep.
That's crazy because VRChat is like one of the largest, social apps, and you're just saying like everyone just works remotely, and like that's like art on itself to work together like that, because it can be hard to not physically have that a conversation going on, but since that's the baseline of VRChat, it totally makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it works quite well too. When the whole coronavirus hit, I know a lot of companies were adjusting to working remotely, and it felt good to already be in a situation where we knew how to work remotely and do it well. So
Yeah.
And that's interesting that you touched on that, actually, because we've seen sort of the rise of other sort of collaboration, remote working platforms. And although sort of, I would say in my mind, VRChat is more sort of like a casual meetup, hangout kind of spot, do you see people using it for business use cases more and more now?
I'm pretty sure there are already people using it for business. There's just so many people using the app. It's just hard to know, right? I mean, people could be in private worlds hanging out with their business buddies, not buddies, but coworkers, right? Yeah. and having meetings. We have, for example, many rooms with presentation boards that people could be using for that purpose. I also imagine maybe after hours events. So everybody who has a job, they usually would hang out at the bar with their coworkers after work, right? I could see them hanging out in VR chat after work to socialize. So.
Yeah. And do you think, certainly since like the lockdown of the pandemic, have you seen like an increase in the usage of VR chat from people that are feeling maybe, isolated from like social environments in the real world, so they're migrating over to virtual ones instead?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I can discuss as much as we've announced over Twitter, but
yeah, sure.
I believe the last one was Amir Tupper that tweeted out that we had upwards of 18,000, I believe, users on at one time. And wow. I can say it's increased substantially since then, but I can't speak for specific numbers. But yeah, we've been exploding since the coronavirus started.
That's incredible. And you said like at the beginning, you were one of the very few sort of moderators who sort of, controlled, bad behavior and people misbehaving on the platform. Do you have like a gang of people doing that now? Because it surely can't be just down to you anymore.
Yeah. So we have people handling moderation now. I don't really handle moderation at the current time. So, sure. But we do have people on that. I can't say who, and basically, back when I did moderation and I was doing everything, we had some obviously bad actors come on the platform, and from different famous bad actors from other apps like Second Life, and it definitely when the moderators' names are out there, it can get to be pretty dangerous, So
interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why you look like a pill.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I guess to a certain degree, there's community moderation as well, right? You rely on the community to help you moderate.
Community does a lot of self-moderating within their different communities. They they have events where they set them up. I've even heard of communities having specific blacklists for events, so the people that they don't want to come to their event, they have them on a list somewhere. So if they see their name pop up, they'll kick them out immediately. So our community, they come up with their own unique solutions to problems as well. Yeah.
So awesome. so they create their own banhammers.
Pretty much, yeah.
From scratch,
in a way, yeah.
So you guys recently, the community kicked off the V Market. It's the virtual market, and it's number 4.
Yeah.
And this is like a place where you can, buy avatars, clothes, items, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's like this huge mall almost where you can go shopping for your avatar. Now, can you tell us more about what that is? Because I'm sure there are a lot of folks out there who have never jumped into that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with, as you said, this is the 4th virtual market event. It was started by our Japanese community. A guy named Fio is the head of the virtual market, and the first 2 VRChat had pretty much little to no involvement in, and it just blew up on its own, right? It happened in VRChat, and people just started attending, and they kept improving upon it until they got to a point where it got really big. We talked with them, and as you can see, for example, in the virtual market 3 and 4, you can go into any of those worlds and open up the menu. A special one comes up for virtual market, and it links directly to their website when you click the button. But yeah, so what virtual market is, it's imagine like a virtual shopping mall, but instead of a boring shopping mall, you walk through 6 or so themed environments that are just incredible to look at. One of them, for example, is called World End Utopia. It's like a Nier Automata style world, and you walk through looks like the end of the world just happened, and there's different booths there. And another one, just a radically different one, would be called Nursery Rhyme. And the whole theme there is you are in a small room and you're in a child's dream. You go to the storybook and then you descend into the child's dream. And at the end, you ascend back up into the room again. And in the whole world, you see all these items in the child's room that are put into the world to illustrate his dream. So it's just a wild experience going through these different worlds and seeing all these booths that people have put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Nathan and I jumped in there, and our minds were just completely blown, especially from someone that isn't well versed in VR chat. It kind of is a little bit overwhelming because the whole scale of this thing, like the market is huge, like it's humongous, and then like you say, you've got these individual worlds within the market. And I think we went through like an Alice in Wonderland themed world.
Yeah, that's the child's one.
That's the child's dream one.
Yep.
Right. And it was really interesting. Like as we were exploring the world and looking at the market stalls and all the items for sale, we actually bumped into Thrillseeker, who was live streaming from within the market, showing off his new avatar that he had just bought in the marketplace. And he was kind of telling us how it all works and what it's about. So other than sort of avatars and digital items that you can buy from these little market stalls that people set up themselves, I take it, can you actually, you touched on that you might be able to buy physical items as well, so real world items, a bit like that scene in Ready Player One where Wade goes into the Oasis and buys his haptic boot suit and gets it delivered to the real world. You can actually do that in VRChat as well?
Yeah, so there are a few examples I've seen in there. So one of them I'll take from one of the regular worlds that you see, the 35 or so that have booths from any average like community member, right? But this booth was a booth for VR, or it seemed like it was for these specialty lenses that you would put between the headset if you have different levos of eyesight and you need to put these in. Yeah.
Prescription inserts.
Inserts. There we go. Yeah.
Right.
So, and so that's one example. So the booth was highlighting that, and then you could go to the website and then order those. There was another booth. This was in Parareal Tokyo, which is the official corporate booth world that takes place in a crazy virtual recreation of Tokyo. And this booth in particular was in a virtual 7-Eleven, and actually, that was the booth, by the way. It was a virtual 7-Eleven. You'd walk down under it, and you'd see two things. You'd see the VRChat. So get this. So they're selling in Japan, in 7-Elevens all across Japan, which is like the de facto convenience store, the VRChat virtual market crossover T-shirt.
No way.
Yeah, it has my little pill head on one of them too. I didn't even realize that. I'm like, shit. I'm in a 7-Eleven.
So you're saying you're selling merchandise in every 7-Eleven in Japan?
Yes, that's correct.
Seems legit.
Yeah. I do not personally get anything for the pillhead on it, but yeah, if you're wondering that, I am still poor. But
wow.
Yeah, but
wow.
It's really cool to see that. And then right next to that in the 7-Eleven, this is now the virtual 7-Eleven, there is a little stand for the Nier Automata 2B and 9S avatars. So Square Enix is officially selling those two avatars in VRChat. So people can buy those avatars, they can be them in VRChat, and it's totally cool. It's an official avatar. The same thing with the
That's
Sonic
amazing.
Boom.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sega.
That's crazy. What about currency, virtual currency, that you would be able to use to buy stuff instead? Because, going to the website is like a step kind of like back into the real world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that could be something that could be explored, and potentially with monetization and things like that, virtual currency. But as it stands right now, the interim solution here is to have that link to the website, and things are always going to get better and better. I foresee Virtual Market 5, for example, improving upon Virtual Market 4. So we'll see what that has in store as far as different ways to purchase those items.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the Virtual Market 4 is a timed limited event, right?
Correct. So it's until May 10th. So I'm not sure when this podcast is going to air, but actually when it airs, they may have like a day left. But the thing with all virtual markets they are a timed event, but then they will usually bring them back into VRChat about I'd say 3 to 4 months or so after.
Yeah.
And then you can revisit and check those worlds out again.
So what's the reason why it's like limited?
I am guessing, so the virtual market is run by a company called Hiki, and my best guess is it's just more of a marketing business decision to, so when you think of a timed exclusive event, it gets more people in there looking at the stuff, and creates more of an event out of it than just a persistent world that people can casually visit at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the little stalls and the items for sale, they're mainly made by the community, is that right?
Correct, yes. Yeah, they're...
So it's people that have created like custom avatars or like custom items that you could decorate like a virtual home with, right?
Yeah, correct. So a lot of them are, those kind of custom items or even avatars. And so I would say that 99% or so are made by the community, and there's only that one world out of 36 that's the corporate booth world. Yep.
Right. But, and in terms of like the platform, like that's on the PC side. I don't think you can do this on Quest, right?
So this year there are no Quest compatible virtual market worlds. Last year they had one. It was sort of a basic little Quest world that you can go into and explore. However, things are always subject to change for Virtual Market 5. They may explore more Quest worlds at that time, but I'm not sure their specific plans for that. But they do have Quest-compatible avatars in Virtual Market 5, so you can still go into desktop mode, I guess if you had a Quest, purchase a Quest-compatible avatar, and then upload it and use it on your Quest.
Awesome.
So in a regular mall, in a real one, you pay rent as a shopkeeper. Now, how does it work like in the virtual market? Can people just get a spot for free and then start selling, or do they have to...
So they
pay rent, pay virtual rent.
So I'm not sure how the share works between the Virtual Market Hiki company and the people who have booths at Virtual Market, if there's any sort of cut they take from that. But as far as the application process goes, they start it way in advance, like months in advance, and it's a very stringent process. You sign up. I believe for Virtual Market 4, they were very open to just allowing a lot of different people to be part of it. For Virtual Market 3, they had a lottery system, if I remember correctly, where just randomly people were lucky they got to be part of it. And then the other ones, they did an alternate market after the Virtual Market ended for those booths. But either way, the way the process works is they sign up for the Virtual Market, and then they're given the world that they're in. So if they're in that nursery rhyme world, or if they're in that futuristic world, etc. But then they are given a basic template Unity file that they open up. I was in one of them. Somebody had a booth in, and they showed me the example file. And all they are given to look at is just a bunch of blocks, placeholders, like 4 or 5 for different other booths around them. And then there's their booth. So they have to put their whole booth together and then send it back to Virtual Market, and then they have their guys put it into the world and get it ready by the time it launches. Yeah.
Must be so strange. Like, for example, Mike, starting his own shop selling like virtual GPUs, and then he ends up in like this Alice in Wonderland place. Like, am I really gonna sell my stuff from here? It's like the surprise of like where you're gonna do it.
No, they know the theme. I believe where they're gonna be doing it. Like, they'll know if it's an Alice in Wonderland style world. I don't think they will know their exact position in that world. So,
but it's great to know up front, because then you can theme it together. Like, we have seen certain people having shops that kind of blend with the environment, so they are not seeming to be off in any way. So it's nice to be kind of up to date with that.
The interesting thing here is Virtual Market, they started a global team, right? This was just recently. So you haven't really seen the effects of it for Virtual Market 4, but for Virtual Market 5, I imagine we'll see a lot of big changes due to the global team, and it'll be a lot more international friendly for those events.
Yeah. And do we have to wait till next year to see that?
Well, that's the thing. Last Virtual Market was in September of 2019. So now it's about May, so less than a year away. I think they do.
Okay, cool.
It's not exactly twice a year, but something close to that.
Interesting. So moving away from sort of like the virtual market, let's just talk about VRChat in general, because I think we could talk about VRChat in general for hours and hours, but I just wanted to touch on a few things, because just recently we've seen the sort of rise in people using full body tracking, like multiple Vive trackers on their feet and their hips to show full body tracking in VRChat, and also the use of haptic vests where people can touch their avatar and they can feel the response, the haptic feedback in real life. Do you think this is just the beginning of this kind of, technology that we'll see in the future in VRChat?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's actually, it's been even happening since like a few years ago, since the HTC Vive trackers were a thing. But for example, one big community in VRChat is the dance community, and you might notice if you look at our Twitter, we just retweeted today, so it would show up under May 7th. But there was a tweet from this person called Makoto_VR of a dance battle taking place in VRChat, and I've seen a lot of VRChat dance videos. I was blown away by it, but this one in particular, you see this person just doing full-on backflips one after the other, breakdancing on the floor. I don't know how they did it, to be honest. I know it probably involved some sort of wireless headset in addition to the trackers, but this kind of stuff goes on every day. There are big dance communities in VRChat where they get together and have dance competitions, and there's nightclubs with full-body dancing as well. It's quite impressive with the full body stuff. Yeah.
Have you ever used any yourself?
Yeah. So I got I got full body back in my last apartment. So I'm down here just for reference in San Francisco, where, as you might imagine, the apartment space is pretty small. But either way, so my last apartment, I got full body tracking, the Vive trackers. I still remember I came in with them on, and I've never been so excited to see my legs move. I just came in doing the whole the Russian dance where you're kicking your legs up into the air, and I just tap on people's shoulder and be like, "Hey, look at me go!" And do that whole thing, and but for me, it's still personally, I'd like to see those trackers just have better battery life and be easier for the average person to use, because right now they're hardcore. People who use trackers love them and they use them all the time, but they literally have battery packs attached to their body to keep the trackers going because they're in so long,
I remember watching Thrillseeker talk about that, and I think he was saying that he was having battery packs strapped to him as well. But also these Vive trackers, they're very expensive, and they're hard to get hold of now. And I wonder if we'll see maybe Valve create their own, or maybe, allow these kind of, I know it was teased a while ago, like open source trackers, that people could use themselves and make themselves. So I wonder if that will become a thing in the future. But it's definitely exciting to see the use of this technology, and certainly how people are using it, like you say, for dance-off parties. That just sounds incredible to watch.
Oh yeah, no, I could easily see something happening in the distant future. I don't know if you guys have ever seen there's American Idol for singing, but for dancing there's So You Think You Can Dance on TV. I could see them taking that fully digital and having people in full body tracking suits in VR do the dance competition. Yeah.
If you ever need a couple of judges, you know where to look, right?
Oh yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. Could be. Yeah. Are you a professional dancer?
No,
apparently.
So Nathan did play Channel 5 recently.
I did. Yeah. I was very good at it. No, I can totally rank people. I will put my virtual sign in the air, giving 10 points. No, I'm totally down for that.
How did you enjoy those? How long did it take you to beat? I heard it was 40 minutes, 45-ish.
Yeah, it was like I think 30 minutes for the story.
Yep.
But I was very good at dancing. The better you dance, the faster the campaign goes. But something that I really want to ask you is, so for a lot of people, well, not everyone, but some people, jumping into VRChat can be kind of daunting because you have no idea where to start, basically, because it's full of possibilities. So let's say if you're a beginner, Okay, you're someone who just got a VR headset and is like, okay, I want to try some multiplayer stuff, some social stuff. I see VRChat, and then what should they do?
Of course. So first off, I just want to emphasize that we are continually improving upon all these like issues you talk about, like with a new player coming in. How do they know how to get started? So we're continually working on making that easier for the player coming into VRChat for the first time. But I say right now it's best to just think of it like the real world. You go into you have a bunch of bars in front of you. You walk in, you're solo, right? Or you go. Let's just say a different example. You go to a meetup.com event, right? You see a bunch of people around. Treat it like that. Try and get a feel for the room. If it feels like you could vibe with that scene, then go up and try and introduce yourself, try and talk up some people. If it doesn't, there are so many more worlds that you can go and check out. I think, though, the worlds are a very important part of this. So people tend to hang out in worlds that they feel a connection to in some way. So, for example, people who are into Japanese culture might go and hang out in the Japan Shrine. So I'm looking at like the world menu right now, the hot worlds, as I'm sitting in VRChat. So there's 400 people in the Japan Shrine. Maybe, some people, if you're into Japanese culture, you'd go there, you want to practice Japanese maybe. Or if you are planning to have some, drinks with you, if you're doing like a quarantini or something like that, and you're getting your buzz on, there's drinking night. Check out those worlds. I mean, there's just all sorts of different themed worlds that if you scroll down, I'd say check out the worlds under the hot list. Check out the worlds under the Udon Alpha Spotlight, which is the new visual scripting language we introduced just a couple weeks back. These are all interactive worlds with games and things you can do. I think those are a really good way to break the ice and meet people while you're playing a game or doing something like that.
That sounds great. Like feeding the ducks, meeting new people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great.
Feeding the ducks.
Yeah.
So one thing. Go on, Nathan. Go on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, so we wanted to talk about one more thing, and that is memes.
Okay.
Because VRChat is a place where you can become a meme, if you want, if you feel like it. Yeah. So as you said, like if you're not into feeding ducks or getting drunk in VR, then you can also become a meme. And there are so many people who actually become the meme.
I like your two examples: feeding ducks or getting drunk.
Yeah. Well, that's
for those who aren't into getting drunk or feeding ducks.
Yeah, no. Well, that's me from Monday to Friday feeding ducks, right. And then in the weekend it's getting drunk in VR.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have seen not only people becoming memes. The Knuckles meme is, I think, one of the best examples I can give as something that completely blew up on YouTube, on TikTok, on almost every platform that supports video. It's crazy, and it became like a culture on itself almost. But what do you think of let's say YouTubers and people who are on TikTok using VRChat to express themselves, making pretty much art in video form?
I think the whole thing is great. One thing in particular I enjoy about it is the remixing aspect. So somebody will bring in an avatar like you just mentioned, like Knuckles, right? And then a big part of why that became popular as well was they took that avatar and they remixed it into so many different versions, right? And they just kept adding on to it and so on. So sort of like you mentioned TikTok, right? The same way TikTok works with somebody creates a cool video and then other people remix that video into different things, right? It's like that, but visually and with art and 3D models and animations and shaders. It's a really cool way to express yourself, to find a community to fit in with as well. And I think it works in a very special way to help people, like I mentioned earlier, especially younger folk, to break the ice when they come into VRChat with other people, if they join and they meme around with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen the explosion of YouTube channels like Joshdub and Mully who use VRChat as a platform to to orchestrate some scripted sort of like, funny play almost, that they act some stuff out. It's normally hilarious. And do you see the sort of response to that, like interest sort of increases when these videos sort of drop, or do you find, more people using the desktop to access VRChat, because you can access it via desktop as well, right? You don't necessarily need to have a VR headset.
Yeah, so actually this is roughly 2 years ago, so back in 2018. Road to VR published an article just recently that referred back to an interview they did with Graham, the creator of VRChat, and where he mentioned that at that time it was roughly 30% of the users in VRChat were coming in with VR headsets. As you can imagine, that was 2 years ago, and there are a lot more VR headsets out now. That number has increased, right? So we still have desktop users obviously in the app, but we have a lot more VR users, and I think it's a great way to it's a great new way for YouTubers and Twitch streamers to connect with their base, because a big part of streaming on Twitch or YouTube is creating and fostering that relationship with your viewers, right? And I think it creates just a whole new level for that connecting with your viewers, where you can have them come into VRChat and really follow you around, and they can see firsthand all the cool stuff you're doing in the app. We had there's several examples though, of just that happening in the past with different YouTubers that have come into the app. Yeah.
And I think it's been really interesting to talk to you about, VRChat and the virtual market for. And I think, if you want to dive deeper into what VRChat has to offer, if you haven't tried it before, I'd urge you to go check it out. And like Pill said, check out some of the starter worlds. And there's definitely a nice community there that will welcome you and sort of show you the ropes if you need to know. And also, if you don't want to dive into VRChat but still see what it has to offer, follow VRPill on Twitter, because like he said throughout this interview, he posts regular video clips and images that he's taken whilst exploring what VRChat has to offer. So go follow him there. But yeah, we really appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. It's been really, really interesting.
Definitely. Just wanted to leave you this one more note here that just like everything in real life, making quality friends and connections takes time and effort. So keep that in mind when you come into VRChat. May not come magically the first day, but, just like anywhere else, if you put effort into it, there are people who have made long-lasting friendships in VRChat, and they've met up in the real world as well.
Sounds like my friendship with Mike also took a while,
There you go.
That's very true. Thank you very much, Pill. Have a good one, mate.
Yeah, man.